Welcome, everybody. This is another episode of We Are M&R. This is Thomas Trimingham, and today I'm talking with Josh Grizzly Wheeler from Grizzly Wheeler. So welcome to the show, Josh, and maybe just real quick, you can tell us about yourself and your shop.
Yeah, it's nice to see you again, Thomas. Well, for the first time, we've talked quite a bit, but it's the first time seeing your face.
That's right. And honestly, I know I'm interrupting you, Josh, but
That's all right.
I have a little bit of beard envy. I'm wondering if that's how you got the Grizzly name. Is that related, or is it something different?
It may be slightly like most people try to start a clothing brand, quickly realize that it's not as easy as it seems. like,
Mm,
and when we were kicking around like name ideas, uh, I remember I'd go to work when I'd really let it grow out, and people would call me
mm.
Grizzly Adams. I didn't know who that was. So my my last name's Wheeler, and I remember just my buddy that kind of introduced me to all this. We were just sitting around, and nothing would stick. And I'm like, "What about Grizzly Wheeler?" It's not offensive. It's catchy, I guess. And yeah, it just kind of stuck. And the irony is, when you're broke trying to start a clothing brand, you usually have to figure it out yourself. And after doing that enough times, word kind of got around. I ended up getting a couple paying jobs, and I'm like, man, I'm making way more money renting for other people than my own stuff because no one knows who I am or cares. And
That's the
10
crazy
years later,
part.
the rest is history.
Yeah, that's the crazy part about printing. It's like it sucks you in because you're doing other stuff, and then before you know it, your t-shirts are making more money than the thing that you were doing to begin with. A lot of times, it's a weird thing, but I think that happens to a lot of people. Somebody floated me a thought that you were in the Coast Guard at one point. Is that
Yeah, I was in my younger days. I was in the Coast Guard for a few years. I did a quick four and got out.
Oh
Yeah.
wow, okay. Was that down in Florida, or where was that at?
Well, that's one reason we kind of resettled in Charleston was this is where I was stationed, so I was kind of familiar with the area.
Oh,
I'm
okay. All right.
originally I'm originally from Jacksonville, Florida. So yeah, I'm kind of I guess the Florida man in a way. But yeah, it's we mainly chase like the drug boats in the Caribbean. So yeah, when they throw in the cocaine in the water, like not guilty, not guilty, and then we just go along and pick it up like there's no one else out here, you're guilty. Like, yeah, that was a
Yeah,
fun 4 years. It was a good time.
sounds intense. A little bit safer, probably, printing shirts in some ways, I would think.
Yeah, a little
Um,
less crazy. You don't get the
so,
motion sickness
yeah.
floating around the boat all day.
So I talked to Dylan, our mutual friend from Upstate Merch, and he wanted me to ask you if you like caramel pops.
So it's funny, like I'm pretty sure we connected. It was probably like most people, maybe I made a comment and then we'd kind of start direct messaging on Instagram. And I used to play video, like most people, I used to play video games, not much time anymore once you got kids and all that. But it'd been a long time and that Red Dead Redemption game came out.
Oh
And
yeah.
somebody made a comment and I was like, are you guys playing this? And it's funny because we ended up linking up, and for a while there, like a few of the guys in his shop, we'd just meet up and just mess around riding horses in Red Dead Redemption. And I think it was sometime around Halloween, and there was a lot of leftover caramel apple pops in the house. So I kind of finished off the bag, and it just became a trend there for a few weeks.
Well, that's
Like,
cool. I know what to send you. That works out. Um, so just real quick, what's the past couple of weeks been like for you? You know, we've been touching base with people, and some people are saying they're coming out of it now. What's it been like for you?
it definitely slowed down a little bit. Probably a lot of people kind of like most were a little frozen with fear, so thing that projects went on hold. Some of them have come back through. It is weird because a lot of people have been, I mean, we've all been impacted, but a lot of people very severely. A lot of people just completely stopped certain industries. It does feel like a lot of orders are starting to come back in. It's starting to feel somewhat normal, but I'm not going to get too used to this because um, yeah, we have no idea where this is going, but we, we've been treading water, which is as best as I could hope for with as crazy as things are going on right now.
Yeah, yeah, and that's fortunate for you. I'm glad to hear that. I mean, I've talked to kind of printers that span the gamut between people that are really hurting, basically
Right.
shut down, to people that are pretty much haven't even really noticed the impact. And obviously those are in the fortunate few, but um, a couple of questions more specific about your shop. So what is important or specific about what you guys do? What do you think it is that's different about what you do?
Probably I mean, all of us somewhat do the same thing, but kind of what our plan of attack or niche is I mean, for me, printing, anybody that does it, it's a lot of work. And the one thing that can probably keep it from being so much pain, be so painful, is like when you get to make really cool stuff. I mean, at least I think a lot of stuff we make is really cool, and a lot of people think it's cool. And it's kind of just the cherry on the ice cream. Yeah, they don't put cherries on cakes. I think it's just the ice cream saying. But it's like that's kind of the approach we took. It was kind of a selfish endeavor. It's like, I'll print Bob's landscaping. I have no problem with that. But if I had a choice, I would like to print really rad visuals, and that's kind of the marketing approach I took, and was lucky enough to meet a few people, and it's just kind of been word of mouth since then for the people I get to work with. And I work with a lot of designers, and they'll get a project, rebrand something, and then the trust is there and the relationship. So it kind of ends up they pass it to me, and a lot of times the clients love it because they trust the designer trusts me. We work well together, so they can kind of, when they let us do our job, it's very stress free for them because they just get their stuff and it all works and they don't have to micromanage. So that's kind of the market we went after, is like designer artist market.
Yeah, I know that's definitely in my uh, when I started back in uh, 91, but we taking the art side is nice because you end up as less of a commodity. So that's a huge advantage if you can work with designers that way. What do you here's a kind of a sideways question a little bit, but I think it goes into your wheelhouse. What do you think most printers get wrong about water-based inks?
They think it's going to be as easy as plastisol. It's not. It
Yeah.
is. It's not. It's not as scary a product to use as a lot of people think, because like anything, when you feel like you've prepared very well and you completely crash and burn, you lose a lot of confidence, like, and it really messes with your ego. But it is, and I still learn every day. I mean, it's a totally different animal, and you really need a somewhat specific setup to consistently churn out. There's a big difference between doing 25 shirts and doing 500 or 1,000 shirts, and being able to run from first to last without constant stoppage and things like that. Because then time is money, and then you lose your mind because it's clogging and things like that. But yeah, we're not the biggest, we're not the best. We try to be the best, but there's some people out there that we've been lucky to get to know, that we share kind of experience with each other about what we've learned and stuff. And it's helped quite a bit. But it's a community effort, and it's been awesome getting to know other printers, because a lot of people, you shouldn't share everything. It is important to have to earn it a little bit so you appreciate it. But it is pretty amazing when you share things with each other, because you're really just trying to help each other. Because it is true, rising tide lifts all ships, that it it helps us all keep our pricing higher because we're all doing consistent jobs. And there's enough work. I do believe there's enough work out there, because most people don't probably don't have the obsession that some have, um, where they do a different market. But that's the other side about dealing with creatives and designers, is sometimes people ask, how do you get to work with these people? Well, there's a lot of stress that goes with that, because it's trust and them knowing you're going to take their artwork and reproduce it to the T. And you got to kind of know what you're doing to pull that off. You got to understand some of the science and stuff. And I'm always learning. We're always learning. So yeah, the goal is perfection, knowing that's unattainable, but it's the goal and it's the effort that we strive for.
What do you think? I mean, just one point, and this is going back a little bit, but just teasing some things out. What do you mean by having the right setup for water
It's
based?
just the
Like,
different the emulsions you use, the palette temps. If you're not an auto printer, I mean, when I first got the auto, um, you think it's very simple. You know, we got the red chilies and stuff, but I learned very quickly, specifically with discharge, you got to understand your mesh counts, which affects your pickup, which affects the visual appearance of a print. You know, whether fibers are kind of sticking up and things like that. But yeah, emulsion, your inks, understanding how to build the inks. I've used every type of water-based ink. I mean, the main ones: Magna, Virus, Matsui. There's tons of them out there. A lot of people. It just takes time, unless you got a really good friend that retired and is going to share all the secrets with you. It takes time. The seasons affect it. I mean, like right now, it's getting hotter. Even with climate control in your shop, your AC is going to fight harder in the summer months. You know, just stuff like there's a lot of factors. So, a side note: when I was in the Coast Guard, it doesn't really phase me to be paying attention to a ton of different things at once because I was tasked with being the air traffic controller. So, listening to 10
wow.
speakers, managing an aircraft that if it goes down, you're going to possibly go to prison, like that's a real consequence. But it's just learning to understand you're running those shirts. If you're not doing it right, you're going to cost yourself a lot of money. But being able to stay calm and just learn and understand how to troubleshoot and problem solve real time, because that's maybe the biggest difference between plastisol and Waterbase. Waterbase is real time. You can't screw around. You can't goof off. I mean, I remember when I got into this, my buddy. I've always used Waterbase. My buddy that got me into this used Waterbase, but I remember he had like a plastisol screen, and it had been sitting there like 3 weeks. And he went over and screened an image, and like part of me doesn't want to do plastisol because I'm scared I'll get lazy, like, like get used to it. And I really do believe like Waterbase is the future. I mean, it's
Yeah.
kind of inevitable with the environment. I mean, they're not perfect inks. You can't drink them and eat a sandwich and think you're gonna be all right. It's a chemical composition, but it's a better product to me, and I think it's the future,
You
honestly.
know, and I would say I would agree with you there. I think that, there's definitely a trend towards that. You see it more in California than in some other areas. Some of the trendier areas are going that way. Just a real quick funny take. When I first started back in '92, I was in Woodstock at Groundhog Day. We were printing shirts for Groundhog Day, the movie,
Wow.
and it was in a little single wide trailer sitting next to the dryer. And I just finished eating a ham sandwich, and I dripped some mustard on my light table, and I swiped it up and I ate it. And then I saw I dripped some more, and I swiped that up and I ate that, but that didn't have any flavor. And I realized that the printer he had stuck the squeegee while I wasn't looking. He had stuck the squeegee or wiped it somehow on my light table. So I ate a big old glob of yellow. It looked like mustard, yellow ink, and all my teeth were all yellow for a while. I was like,
Oh my
but I
god.
learned that plastisol doesn't have any taste, so it was a useful lesson. So
You probably look like a taste tester for the buttered popcorn division of Jelly Belly, and you just gotten a little too crazy that day. You
yeah,
went
that
over
was
the
an
quota.
experience for sure, for sure. Now, what about curing with water based? A lot of people are, they struggle with that. I know that might be something.
So the day that I picked up our mini sprint was a glorious day because up to that point, I mean, you can use any type of dry. I mean, I think the first thing I had was an infrared Vastex, and then we upgraded to a workhorse, which was quartz. That's a little more gentler on the garments than the infrared. But before we got the mini sprint, I mean, just so I could sleep better at night, because I've gotten the calls when you start. Oh, one of my first jobs was a discharge. I'll never forget. It was a family friend, and he had a landscape company, and I did a big back print and cured it with the heat gun, and it looked right. And the next day, they had bought like this new Dodge Ram as part of the new crew, and I remember he called me. He's like, Josh, because he didn't wash them before he wore them,
Hmm.
They had started sweating that day, and that ink got all over the seat of that truck. And I've never
Oh,
forgotten
man.
that. I just as a lesson. But curing, we'd always have to run things twice before the sprint. Gas is absolutely optimal. It's just better all around because it's gentler on a tri blend to a dry fit to a sweater. I mean, there's a lot of factors that I particularly am super OCD about. I mean, it's you didn't do your job right. I don't feel like you could have the best print in the world if you put the shirt on before you printed it, it felt great, and you pulled out and you look like a busted can of biscuits at the store because it's just squeezing every crevice of your body. Something went wrong between the first screen and it coming out of the dryer, and you can cure them. It's just, yeah, the wash fastness of gas is always going to be superior. And the irony is it can end up cheaper because people, depending on your gas bill, how much you're running it, but it's more efficient and it's just more consistent.
Yeah, that's a common thing that I hear. That people want to get into water-based, especially discharge, and if they don't have the dryer, I tend to discourage them out of the gate. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm not going to discourage them from trying like a one color discharge. Just try
Right.
it. But it's just for any kind of production. The third time through the dryer, you start to wonder about profitability a little bit. It's like,
That's the whole thing. Is like, yeah, that's what I mean by when we had the mini sprint, and we've got a 12-foot chamber. It's 20 feet long, and like, oh my gosh, like just knowing when it went through once, because for several years, I mean, the workhorse was a great dryer, but knowing everything you do, you're going to have to run twice. And the funny thing is too, I don't know if some people experience this, but there is a curse amongst heathered gray 50/50s or tri blends. It's the only one I've ever experienced. If you overlay those garments, there is a ghosting line on them. So, in what I in with everything besides gas, even if you laid them, if that shirt wasn't completely flat, I would see a ghosting line. If you fold it in half, it didn't matter if you overlay fold it in half, but with the gas, you can fold it in half and there's nothing because it's just a different. It's like it's giving the shirt a big warm hug gently. It's like,
that's so
yeah,
weird that I know what you're
just the
talking about.
grays. It's just
Yeah.
like the
So
reds, the
weird.
blues. They'll heat up and they'll look a different color, but they go back to normal. And there's no ghosting line.
Hmm.
Weird, super weird.
It is. So what about like moving forward now that for the rest of the year? What are you seeing? What do you anticipate? Anything? What are your
Uh,
thoughts?
I mean, honestly, my wife works in the medical industry, and
Mm,
it, I went through '08 full force and made some financial decisions and kind of felt the overnight impact of that. This is a different animal, and talking to my wife and several other people, I mean, this is going to be an 18 to 24 month most likely roller coaster because they're predicting flare ups. It's the psychological fear, which is real, and people. I do have clients who have had a friend or relative that has passed away from the disease, and they may have had other complications, but that was a catalyst. So it is real. Um, I come from a long line of gritty blue collar folk that this is how life, this is standard. Life's up and it goes down. The point is to be consistent. And when it's up, pack away your acorns. And when it's down, make some moves because there's always opportunity. And I mean, I just learned that from relatives and friends that have had way bigger businesses than I have. So this is a time to tighten your belt, but there's going to be some serious opportunity and moves you can make that are going to benefit you for the next decade. So you can put your head in the sand or go in the corner and cry, or you can be like, okay, we're not doing $200,000 a month. We're only doing 75 to 100, but we're getting by. And I hate to say it's like, but it's just you can look at the history of our country. This is how the economics work. This is a little different, I think, but um, it's just life. I don't know. You can get depressed, or you can just be like, we're gonna move forward and do the best you can do. I don't know.
yeah, I mean, we had a funny saying when I was training Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. My instructor used to say, it's hard for me to do without the Brazilian accent, but he'd like, don't get hit by the bus, you know? And it would be like, and what he meant by that was if you're walking down the street, sometimes you'll trip over nothing on the sidewalk, you know, and
Right.
you'll think, oh man, and you'll get embarrassed and you'll start looking behind you to see if other people are looking. And he said, and that half the time you end up stepping out right in front of the bus. So it's like,
Right.
don't make things worse in your
Yeah.
mind than they are. Now, granted, there's a lot of people that are experiencing the worst right now. So I guess it
Exactly.
depends on where you're at, but I feel that way in some degree. It's like we can, you know, depending on where you're at and what you're dealing with, you can make it a lot worse if you're not careful, you know? So I
I
think
mean,
there's that.
the brutal truth of it is like I have no intention. I love what I do. I hope I'm around a long time. I might not be around in a few years. I have no idea because help's really hard to find nowadays. I mean, I hope I wish M&R would create an academy. Like it'd be like police people get certified for police, bring them in for 6 months. You can pay into the program like insurance, and you can have a talent field to pull from. But life's gonna change for a lot of people. It's life. I don't know what to say. Like I think
Yeah.
everybody's looking for answers. Um,
Well, that's a
People
fact.
outside our realm made these. Whether this is real or whatever, we could go down a conspiracy theory rabbit hole, which is quite fun. But it's happening. It's happening. I still haven't quite wrapped my head around the fact that this is real, like this is global,
Um, I
because
don't
the
know.
virus is one thing, but it's the economics of it that we have no idea. I mean, I've talked to several clients, and there's clients of mine that have already shut down. They haven't announced it, but they're done. I mean, they
Yeah.
have investment groups behind them and stuff, so it's a little different scenario. But they poured their life and soul into these places, and they've had to just accept that um, it came, and we got to adapt and just move forward. I don't. You'll
Yeah.
come. You'll always come. If you're creative, you will come up with other ideas. You will find a way to um, roll with it. You will find. It's like I didn't make this patch. This is a amazing designer, Aaron Draplin. But like I do patches and pins, for example, and I only ever did that and learned that arena because printing didn't fill my whole day. And as a person that wants to be successful, I've got to find a way to diversify and make more revenue come in. And the irony is some people don't even know we screen print because we do so many patches and pins. But you know, there's always something. You can always do something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Make hot pockets in your dryer and feed the public. I don't know. Like there's
Well, that's
things
the thing, you know, whether it's masks or something, although masks might be harder for you to
you
wear because you got the hair, but you know, I saw a really funny meme that was like beard versus mask, and there's just like the beard is just like exploding out of the mask. And so that'd be more of a challenge for you,
I
but
drink a lot of white monsters and eat ramen, so I probably have a pretty strong immune system.
yeah, I would
If
hope, I
something
would
hasn't,
hope for
something hadn't
sure.
got me yet, like I might have a chance. Like I don't know.
Yeah. Well, how can people get in touch with you, Josh? I mean, what's a good way to get in touch with you, learn more about your company?
Well, we got our website's Grizzly Wheeler at Gmail, or that's the email, grizzlywheeler.com. Grizzlywheeler@gmail.com is the email, or you can direct message us on M&R or M&R. What am I doing? It's too much ramen. I'm like having scatterbrain.
You're
You
all
can
right.
direct
You're all
message
right. We're
us
still
on.
here. We're good.
You can direct message us on Instagram. It's just Grizzly Wheeler. But yeah, I like. It's been amazing getting to know my buddy Dylan at Upstate Merch. Yeah, I just did a podcast with him, and it's like getting messages and meeting all these new printers. I mean, as a person that's kind of an introvert at heart and always kind of been a lone wolf, when you really experience community and just sitting here talking to you, like that is a really amazing thing you can experience in life, and like especially going through something like this. Some people are going to get hit really hard. Some people are going to thrive during this, but like as a whole, we all got our place, and I think you just lend an ear and just or advice or some information, and one way or another, life goes on, and it'll be all right.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for your time today, Josh. This is great. And
I
I look
really
forward to talking
appreciate
to you
it.
again. Thanks a lot.
Definitely. Yeah.